What is going on, Illumineers, and welcome back into the Madhouse. And I have another gameplay commentary video for you. It is traditional SteelSong versus an aggro RubyFasa list. And this matchup is pretty interesting. I'll spoil it now. I do go 2-0 on the play, but in game one, I make a lot of suboptimal plays that I kind of got really lucky for. And so we talk a lot. I talk a lot in the first game because there's a lot of choices that I make that I think I could have done differently, things that I should have done differently to better optimize what I had in my hand and the ink and just all of my resources and things that I could have done differently into this matchup. But looking at this list, this is the same list that I ran last week, and we're still testing the Calhouns and we're still testing the Aerial Sonic Warriors. Calhoun just she's been doing really well, and we don't see her come down in this matchup, but playing her on the draw just feels really safe. And I haven't hated her. I haven't loved her yet, but she's done really well. Still testing the I'm Still Here's that give a character resist +2 and draw a card. That's felt really good still. I'll admit, going into set champs, I'll probably change that for World's Greatest Criminal Minds because of red blue, but the list has felt really good. Gantu continues to really do really well, and Calhoun continues to do really well, and Ariel in game 2, you will see her really pop off and have a really big turn for me as well. So we're in a good place with the list, still not finalized, always making changes, but with that, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay. Let's rock and roll, and I'll see you over there. All right, straight into the mulligan, and in our hand we have a good hand. It's definitely not a high rolly hand, but it's a hand that we'd like to see going into a RubyFasa matchup. We have the Zombie Lilo, we have the Big Cindy, the Little Cindy, two big Robin Hoods, Strength of a Raging Fire, and the Lawrence. And what we like about this hand is that A, we have one of the pieces of the shift line, but B, we have an answer for Gaston on turn 4 if they play it, especially where we're on the play. And what I mean by that is we have a 1, 2, 3, and we most likely will draw into a fourth character that we can play. So that means we can answer their Gaston, because Gaston is really one of the most impactful cards that threaten us in this matchup. If we can't answer Gaston, they're able to get out all of these big characters that just make it really difficult for us to do what we want to do. So with this hand, we're not in a bad place. There is a line where you could just mulligan 2. You can mulligan away the big Robin Hood and the big Cindy and call it there. What I opt to do instead is something slightly different, because Lilo is not a match that I really want to see in this match up, so I opt to get rid of the Zombie Lilo. You'll see I temporarily get rid of the Lawrence and change my mind because that would have been very silly. So I get rid of the Lilo, and that's an interesting choice because I just talked about how Gaston is the biggest threat in this matchup for us, and in hindsight, getting rid of the Lilo was probably the wrong move because Lilo, it's threatening that early lore, and you want to get that early lore against them. You never know if you're playing a variant that is utilizing Be Prepared or the Big Sizus. So in hindsight, I should have just kept the Zombie Lilo and left it at that, and then mulliganed away 2. But we're not in a bad place. The nice thing about, to let the Storm Rages on is that their RubyFasa plays light characters early on, so we're going to get to use them, and that does feel really good. So going into this first turn, this whole game, I'm going to have a lot to say because I think I do a lot of things that are suboptimal that I think I just got lucky for, and we'll talk about them though as we go on, because you'll see that going into this first hand, my ink choice is interesting, and I'm about to ink the Robin Hood, and for some crazy weird reason, I opt instead to ink Strength of a Raging Fire, and I think part of that is PTSD. Earlier in the day, I kept inking my big Robin Hoods or my little Robin Hoods, and then the next turn I would draw into the shift piece. So with that though, I think, yeah, I should have inked the big Robin Hood and played or kept the strength of a Raging Fire. And then this turn, it would have given me a different option where I could decide to, like, for example, I have a good turn 2 and I have a good turn 3, and I could have blasted the Daisy, for 2 and drawn something to possibly ink, but instead I opt to not do that. I hold on to these Let the Storm Rage ons for no reason. There is my Robin Hood though, but then I lose my Daisy or my Cindy for nothing, and that's the other thing. I had no reason, if I wasn't going to sing with Cindy, I had no reason not to quest with Cindy. He might run Queen of Hearts, but most don't anymore. So it would have been a relatively safe thing to do if I wanted. And if he had, then I still had Ursula that could have blasted the Queen of Hearts next turn. So that was an oversight on my part. I should have quested if I wasn't going to sing. But just like that, you see lots of lines start to develop. And then here, it's another interesting line that I opt to take because I have a couple options here, and I end up inking the Lawrence to play the Robin Hood. And that's an interesting choice. We'll go back a second. I ink the Lawrence and I play the Robin Hood. And that's an interesting choice because there is a world where you just don't play like that. Instead, you play the Lawrence to use all of your ink, and you ink, the big Robin Hood or something. And if I would have played more optimally earlier, I wouldn't even have the big Robin Hood in my hand. But yeah, so we play the Robin Hood in hopes that he can't banish it. Most likely he can't. He already used the Teeth of Ambitions. They probably don't run many more. So we guarantee getting that big Robin Hood down this turn. And then it's kind of off to the races at that point, because with that, we can start doing some crazy things. We could sing Whole New World if we wanted to, but he's only on 3 cards, so we're not really in a place where we need to or we want to fill him up yet. But we shift the Robin Hood, we blast the Mulan. You see, that was an important decision there. You see that I was about to ink the little Cindy, and then I thought I need to draw first, and always make sure you try and do that. Always try and draw first before you make your ink choices, before you play your cards, because that way you're playing with full knowledge. You know exactly what you're trying to do, and you can make the most optimal lines possible. So we end up drawing an uninkable anyways, so we ink the little Cindy anyways, and then we just can start questing. So doing okay. If I would have quested with the little Cindy earlier, we'd be at 3 right now. So it doesn't end up mattering in the end, but it is important. I wasted that 1 lore. So he quests with Pegasus, evasive, and this right here tells me that I could have been really patient if I wanted to, because he inked and passed, which means he has a lot of high cost uninkables, or just high cost cards that he can't play. Maui's, Madame Medusas, things like that. Really anything that's expensive. But I opt to, actually, there we go. I think that might be a Rapunzel, and then Lady Tremaine and Maui. So just high cost cards that make things difficult for him. So that turn really hurt him. And here I opt to Naveen into a Whole New World, and that way I can start going. And this was another interesting choice, because what I could have done instead, knowing that I still had a lot of cheap cards in my deck, is I could have just sang with Robin Hood, Whole New World, and then this turn where I had 5 ink, I could have dropped that Lawrence and Mr. Smee and presented myself with a lot more opportunities in the next turn instead of playing that Naveen, because now he gets to use his ink before I do. So that was an interesting choice on my part as well, and honestly a misplay if I do say so myself. So there we see the Maui come down. That's easy for us to deal with because we can just blast it with strength to get it out of the way. And then here we have a lot of options. We could go Smee, we could go Lawrence and Smee, which is giving us a lot of opportunities. And instead, for whatever weird reason, we decide to be really greedy and go Ariel, and we get punished, as we should. We see no songs, which is likely. We've already seen This is our second strength in our hand. We've seen 2 whole new worlds, and we've seen 3 or 4 that the Storm Rage is on. So I don't know why. I have no good reason to play that aerial there. Absolutely no good reason at all. It was a really bad choice on my part because I should just be going super wide at this point. There is a world where some of them do run B preps, some of them do run big Sizus, and he is getting close to that area, so I should have been playing these big cards so I can do these big things. So for example, I skipped the Naveen last turn and instead played the Lawrence and the Smee, and then this turn I could have dropped the Robin Hood or the Lilo, and just I could have had a lot of different options, and instead I opt to play an aerial, and I'm just playing really slow instead of aggro like I'm supposed to be doing. So just this is another match where you don't want to go super late into it, because if he starts getting all those big characters down, it can be difficult for you to handle all of that. So, and then his version does run Hydra as well, which can be difficult to deal with. So here I have, I think, 2 more ink. So I have the option, or 3 ink. Okay, so I drop the Lawrence, and then I sing Strength and draw 2, or quest for 2. Okay. All right.
I smell fire.
Oh, there's a truck outside right now, but. So here I'm just wondering what line to take. And looking at it, we always quest with the Lawrence here. Of course, there's nothing we can challenge anyways. There's no option for Rapunzel heal going on. So we sing I'm Still Here just to see what other options we have. And so we could draw a card just to see what kind of opens up for us. He is on turn 6, and that means that there is the possibility of Be Prepared coming down next turn. So that is something to be weary of, and I believe I'm on 6 ink as well at this point. So, I believe I'm on 6 ink. So here I'm just debating what do I want to put I'm Still Here on. I could put it on Lawrence, which protects him from Madame Medusa, or Ariel, which protects her from Madame Medusa, and I opt to save my Lawrence, protect him, and I draw into my 1 of Gant 2, which feels really good because that questing for 4 is just great. And at this point, I'm just saying I hope you don't have B prep, and this is where I just failed to notice how much ink he had, and I should have a better play going into turn 7 would have been the zombie Lilo instead of the Smee, so that this turn I could go Smee and bring back the zombie Lilo from the discard. But he doesn't have B prep. I don't know. I don't even know if he runs it. I never asked, but at this point I'm threatening a pretty good board. But I should also be a lot further ahead, and that's something to. If I had played the Lawrence and the Smee earlier, I'd probably be at something like 12 or 13, and in a place where he most likely just never comes back from. And that's just really important. So it takes out the Ursula, and yeah. So here we see another aerial, but right now we're at 8. We have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Aerial gives us 18. And aerial is also something that he probably can't deal with, so that feels pretty safe to play as well, and that's what I opt to do. And then we can also just drop the Lilo if we really wanted to, because there's nothing he can do to punish that. But you see that I kind of hold back. Do I want to drop the Lilo? Do I want to drop the aerial? I have 2 ink right now, so I could just drop the Lilo and pass. And I'm just kind of holding back and wondering, what option or what line do I want to take, when the obvious one is just simply, oh, do I have 3 ink? Oh, I do have 3 ink, so I have enough for Rapunzel. So nice. So I get a great Rapunzel heal then, and that is one thing I really like about Sonic Warrior is that big butt that is so dangerous against green purple can also just be amazing because you can trade into pretty much anything you want and guarantee that you get a really nice Rapunzel heal out of it. And so that felt really good. I had a lot of ink that turn. So, and here my opponent actually helps me out. This is something that someone pointed out in another video actually, is that Gantu is a captain, and I have a habit of doing that. I forget that Piglet's a captain and that Gantu's a captain. So, yeah, Captain Cranky Head coming in. It doesn't really change anything this match, but in the future it really could. And there he kind of puts it down and says, yeah, there's nothing I can do to stop you on this turn. So lots of mistakes in this game. Not necessarily there. I wouldn't call them mistakes. Actually, it's more suboptimal lines that I took. There's a lot of things that I could have just done better, like not floating ink and just playing more aggressive. And you guys will see that it's a habit that I have when I play this traditional SteelSong, is that sometimes I'm not as aggressive as I should be, and because I just focus so much on control. And oh, nasty scar. And that's something that I need to do better about, and that's something that I encourage everybody to do better about. I actually write a lot about it in the guide, and it's just, you are an aggro deck. I just don't take my own advice for whatever reason. But let's go ahead and fast forward, get to that mulligan for game 2. All right. Bam. Okay. So this hand, we both were just, I'll unmute it and you can kind of hear it. And I'll mute it again because my laugh is annoying. But looking at this hand, it's not great. We have Robin Hood. We have Whole New World, Lawrence, Along Came Zeus, Prince Naveen, Zombie Lilo, and Along Came Zeus. So looking at this, in a world where I am on the draw, the only things that I would debate keeping would be Lawrence and Robin Hood. They're both inkable. Lawrence is a great card, and the rest of it is just useless. If I had an Ursula, keeping a Zeus would be really good, but I don't. Naveen is just too slow to keep Zeus, and I'd be keeping 2 uninkables. So looking at this hand, I would keep 5, or I would keep 2, but I'll unmute it real quick and you can hear both of our expressions. We're both just like, what the I mean,
like when like you're in there separately.
yeah, so neither one of
I love
us.
that we both had the same facial expressions. Like, what in the world?
I saw you do it, and I'm like, wait a minute, like how much?
Yeah, so there's my laugh that you guys have heard in other videos. And anyways, we both were just like, what is this hand? His was, they were pretty similar in what we not wanting to see, hoping for a few things better. Neither one super bad. He at least had a 1-drop in Mulan, and he ends up only throwing away 3. So his hand wasn't that bad after all. But because I end up throwing away 5, and I could make an argument to throw away Big Robin Hood as well, just really trying to dig for a 1 and 2 drop. But I debate keeping the Zeus just in case I draw into an Ursula, but I think better of it and decide not to go that route. But we draw our next 5, and we do see a 2 drop, so we're pretty happy about that. Go ahead and fast forward a little bit. Okay, so we get super blessed with a little Cindy, and that is, we are feeling super good now because that little Cindy is everything. Because we can take out the Mulan, which is a shift target for Big Mulan if he runs it, but also a target for Julieta and Rapunzel, and they really need that card draw, so it feels really good to see that. And he drops the Daisy, so he can start going aggro pretty early if he wanted to, and we'll kind of see what happens. And I'm curious Here, I don't have to ink the big Robin Hood yet because I do have, I do have time and I do have extra inkables, but I opt to. Maybe I learned from my lesson last time and just let's keep these cards. And I blow up the Mulan there, and that wasn't a bad choice, but it wasn't a great choice because I have Naveen, so most likely if he heals the Mulan with Rapunzel or Julieta, I have Naveen on turn 4 with Whole New World, and that would feel really good. So I don't really care if he draws a bunch of cards, and instead I take out the Mulan and he gets to play a dock for free because now I don't have an answer for the dock. So I really left myself open there for him to start cheating out characters or bigger characters that could really hurt me. And so that was silly. I was too aggressive there with my songs. I should have held that back and just, carried on. But I play the Lawrence, and I'm happy with this board so far because this is questing for 5 next turn if I wanted to, questing for 3 this turn. I could take out the Daisy if I wanted to kind of slow him down while keeping my Rapunzel or my Smee and my Cindy alive. And that's what I opt to do. Take out the Daisy. I don't really need the card draw because I know that I'm coming up on my Naveen Whole New World turn. He quests for 2, cheats out of Prince Eric. So nice character, lets him get some removal in, which feels good, and a Daisy. And now he's on 1 card. So my Whole New World is in a not so great place at this point. But we opt to just do a trade with the docks, which feels good, get that questing out of the way. And now I should be on 3 ink. So I can ink the Lilo to go Robin Hood and Lawrence, which we were just talking about how I need to quit floating ink. So I hope that's the choice I make here, because then that gives me a really wide board if I decide that I want to that was an interesting choice. Yeah, so that was a choice. I don't have a good reason for doing that. He didn't quest with Prince Eric, which I think, or he hasn't passed yet. Okay. Yeah, that was a weird choice. Like I said, I believe that I should have just inked the Lawrence to play, or sorry, inked the Lilo to play the Robin Hood and the Lawrence, and that made his turn a lot easier there on what he wants to do because he can hit. And this was a mistake on my part that he points out here in a second, but I banished the Lawrence thinking Prince Eric had more attack than that. I mean, Lawrence should definitely still live, but we ink there, and I don't know. Okay, drop the Lawrence. And let's see what choice. Yep, that's where he points out my mistake. So, yay for locals. I imagine that at a bigger scene, someone else would have been very thankful for that mistake and not said anything. So, hey, you take your wins how you get them, right? But yeah, so we go ahead and deal 2 to Daisy so we can draw. We get a Rapunzel, which feels really good. And because now we don't have to Whole New World, and that allows us this really great opportunity to kind of control the board. We have 2 Lawrences down, a Lilo down, and he has 1 card, and now 2 cards. So we don't ever have to Whole New World at this point if we manage to get the Rapunzel heal off on this next turn. He opts to take out my Lilo, and now it is game time. He is stuck on 4 ink as well. So here we go, Rapunzel, and that's kind of the beginning of the end for him because he's stuck on 4 ink, and I have 6 on board. So it is definitely a clock at this point. Opt to ink Pete. Really no good reason. I could have inked really anything. And I take out the Daisy when I should have probably just quested. Again, just be aggro. I don't care if he has a Daisy and goes to 9 lore this next turn because I'm winning that race. So it doesn't really matter what he does or how he does it. I just win the race every single time. But again, maybe I just got greedy. I wanted the Rapunzel heal. But now I can quest for 6 and yeah, just hopefully not make any more silly trades. But because he's on 5, so we can go to 6 this turn. But next turn I got 10, 11. So I have lethal 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Okay, I have 9 on board. So not quite lethal, but oh, and he has to pass. What is one? That's 5 ink. So, oh, shoot. He got, yeah, that was painful for him. So, but yeah. So a couple mistakes with this game as well. Hitting that daisy for no reason. It really just came down to I need to be more aggressive. And I write this in the guide throughout. I even start with it in the guide of we are an aggro deck. And with that, you need to be an aggro deck. You need to not be so greedy because there's a lot of turns where I could have just quested or done these turns and I could have ended the game sooner had I quested differently or played cards differently and controlled the game that way. But a good 2-0 into RubyFasa. He never saw the Gaston. He bricked pretty hard on game 2, and then game 1 he ended up not even having a 4 drop, I believe. But yeah, again, SteelSong doing what SteelSong does. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you. The next gameplay footage will be Purple Steel. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, stay happy and healthy. I'll see you around.